Have you ever stopped to think about the big questions that have shaped your life? Questions like, do I truly belong? How do I succeed? Or even, what is this life all about? So, for me, these questions have been deeply personal and tied to moments in my journey, moments of fear, even of shame, but also moments of discovery and growth. In this video, I want to share some of those moments with you. My struggles with fitting in, the lessons I've learned about fear, and my ongoing search for purpose. I don't have all the answers, but maybe that's part of the point. Maybe exploring these questions and sharing what we think together about these questions is what helps us to move forward. So let's get into it. So, the first question that arose for me in my life was, is the world safe? And it wasn't a cognitive or verbal question, it was more of an experiential question for me. When I was born with a cyst on my nose, and it created uncertainty around my birth. Also, the cyst couldn't be removed for 3 months as I had to go under anesthesia and I was too small to do so when I was born. So, this created the question of, is the world safe? Am I safe in the world? And then again, just before my first birthday, I suffered a severe head injury, and it was just about here, I guess. And I was again in hospital. You know, I had a blood clot in my brain, and they had to remove it. And I had to go through that sort of difficulty of being separated from my parents, and going under surgery. That was quite stressful, I guess, for a very, very young baby. So the question of, is the world safe, arose at a very, very primal time in my experience. And I believe it's sat with me as I've gone through life. You know, there's been this sort of jolt in my system that has been part of my body memory and that I've had to seek to release and not hold on to, um, in many instances throughout my life. So this question still sits with me, and has certainly shaped who I am today. So the next question that arose in my experience was, where do I belong and do I fit in? I remember as a very young boy not feeling like I fitted in with the rough and tumble boys. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't know how to be free in that sort of world. So I moved from them, and I felt I shouldn't be with them for whatever reason. I had a number of friends, maybe until I was about 9, and I felt quite content and I felt like I fitted to some degree, but I always questioned why I didn't fit in with the other boys as well. And so this sort of question of, do I belong, was there for me. But then around 9 or 10, I pulled back even from the friends I had at that time. Um, there was a bit of rejection or some things went wrong, and it just got tough for me to deal with. I felt I'd made mistakes. I felt they didn't want me. And then in the end, I felt safer to pull back. And so I isolated myself, and I felt this sense of isolation through my teenage years. And I wanted to break out of it. I wanted to find a way, but I didn't at the time. You know, this sense of belonging was a big question for me, um, and I've had this question through my life. You know, as an adult, I've always been thinking, where do I fit? What job is it best for me to fit in? Which groups are good for me to join? Um, and I guess belonging is very important to us as people. Um, so it's been an ever present question, um, that I think I'm still learning in and growing in. And I guess I'll share a little bit later, I think, some of how I've overcome that isolation that I've referred to already. So, another question that arose in my life was, what does it mean to be good? For me, from a young age, it was important for me to be good, to do the supposed right thing, to please my parents, to obey the rules at school, to study hard, that sort of thing. It was important for me. I don't really know why. I just always was that sort of young boy. Um, and it was a bit too much, really, when I was young. And it's been a thread in my life that in many ways I do need to drop, and I've been dropping. Um, this goodness, this sense of being good, was shattered when I was about 9 or 10 years old as well. I got called to the headmaster's office. So we were all lining up outside school, everybody in my year, and a teacher stood up just at the end of lunch and said that I was to go to the headmaster's office along with a couple of other boys. And we went there to be told off. And even thinking back to that incident, I remember the utter shame that I felt at the time, and how hard it was for me to process the experience, the sense of reality that I wasn't good, or I wasn't perceived as good, and the awareness that other people had this understanding of me not being good as well. And that was hard for me. I've actually been reflecting on this a little recently, and for a lot of my life, I've thought of that as a crippling incident, that if it had not happened, my life would be easier. But in another way, the fact that I did have that experience was an opportunity for me to recognize that the people-pleasing nature is not a good thing in itself. The need to actually be good is itself a problem. And so this gave me an opportunity to recognize that at a young age. Yet I wasn't really able to process it in that way. But that doesn't mean I can't process it now or in the future. To be a moment which actually uplifts me and supports me in my life, in releasing the good boy nature, in releasing the sense of shame as well. So yeah, this idea of being good, I've wrestled with it. I did philosophy at university as well. I enjoyed Aristotle's Ethics, which is all about virtue and vice, and really trying to understand what it means to be a good man. I've followed some religion in my past. I've walked away from religion as well because it hasn't served me, and it has been too religious in a sense. But I've also found a new spirituality as well. And I've come to think of spirituality not so much as about goodness, but maybe more about acceptance, maybe more about surrender and enjoyment of life. How can I break free from fear? This question has sat with me a lot. I've contemplated it a lot, thought about it a lot. I mentioned my isolation when I was a kid earlier on in this video. And certainly during those years of feeling isolated as a teenager, I thought about the fear I was feeling, the fear of going out, the fear of being rejected, the fear of just walking into a social situation. And I wondered why I couldn't do it, and I probably put some more shame on myself as a result of that. And I really wanted to understand just what it would mean to step through the fear. When I was 19, I actually had a period of time where I truly did step through the fear in my life. I made a resolution that I would say yes to any social opportunity. I'd got to the point where I was sick of saying no out of fear and missing out on life. And so I said yes to every opportunity I got. I didn't question the opportunity, I just said yes. And I decided that I'd work through the fear leading up to the event. I would be clear in my mind. I would get myself elevated so that I could step into the situation. And during the situation, I would release fear as it arose. And I would relax and be at peace and trust myself. And through that process, over a period of 6 months, saying yes every single opportunity I had to be with people, to connect with people, to go out and to socialize, I really felt an energy shift in my being and a real upliftment and freedom and release in that area in my life. It didn't overcome all my issues with relating, etc., but at the same time, it elevated me to a new level that I had not experienced before. And I understood something of what it means to break free from fear. Over the years, I've thought about that period and what I did then, and I've wanted to bring that into other areas. To some extent, I have. But again, I sometimes wonder, have I done it to the same level of determination in other areas of my life? I still have fears about how I express myself and what I actually do and put out into the world. Um, and I want to determine with the same focus as I had back then. So that's what I'm still questioning, and why how to break free from fear is still something that is important for me to understand in my life too. So I've got two more questions for you that have been part of my journey. The first of these is, how do I succeed? What is purpose? Really one question. What is success and purpose? As a kid, I did well at school. That was an avenue of success for me. I think I did seek recognition, and I was hoping for a form of acceptance through doing well. And I did succeed, and I did find joy in that in many ways, I guess. Um, Later on, as I've moved into the world of work post university, um, I progressed my career. I worked as a consultant. I moved into investment banking, and I did well in that space, and I've enjoyed that work. And then more lately, over the last 10 years, I've had a desire to move into entrepreneurship. I've started a couple of businesses, an Amazon business selling products from China and the US, and I've started a personal coaching business. And lately, I've started another online business. These are things that I've done because I want to have an expression. I want to have a way to let something from me come out into this world, um, and I want to do something well and succeed, I guess. I haven't quite made it in entrepreneurship yet. I recognize sometimes it's your failures that are the basis of your success, and so I'm allowing that to be the case, and I'm seeking to let myself step forward, and keep going. And sometimes keeping going is fundamental to success as well. But also at the back of my mind, I wonder about purpose. I wonder, does my soul have a purpose? Like, is there something I'm here to do? And what is that? And how do I find it, as well as how do I let myself do it? So I explore that in my mind a fair bit. And I'm exploring it in my expression as well. Over the last number of years, I've wanted to express myself more. And in some ways, this YouTube channel, this video itself, is a form of that expression. And I believe if I let myself and allow myself to express, in doing so, I support myself in finding more of my purpose. So my final question is, what is life? What is this world? And I find it a fascinating question, because it does then put a lens into how you experience the world and how you live in your life. Some people consider everything to be a random event. Something random happened, which caused another random thing to happen, and we all appeared, and one day we'll all disappear. Other people consider that a supreme being planned this all out and put it all in place. And we're here to somehow serve or honor the supreme being. I don't think I really accord with either of these worldviews any longer. I'm actually interested in like the primacy of consciousness and the oneness of our consciousness. That all of us are a part of the one consciousness. And we're experiencing, well, that consciousness is experiencing life through each of us. I find that interesting and intriguing. I'm not saying I'm certain it is the case, but that's an interesting worldview. And in effect, we are dreaming this world into reality. Yet we are all one in this divine consciousness. Anyway, these things are useful to explore. I don't know what you think of that one, and maybe you've got more of a concrete idea, or you're interested in that more esoteric view. But it certainly shapes how you come at the experiences of your life. And it's certainly an area that I care to explore more in my life and understand better, but not just understand, but allow myself to integrate the reality of what I discover into my being so that it can support me in how I live my day-to-day life. So as we conclude, I hope all of that has given you some insight into me and also supported your own reflection on the big questions in your life. These questions: is the world safe? Where do I belong? What is this life? They continue to shape my journey, and maybe yours too. I've shared my reflections, but I'd love to hear yours. What questions have shaped your life? Or what stories come to mind when you think about them? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to connect and learn from you. And if these kind of conversations resonate with you, consider subscribing. Together we can explore what it means to live with curiosity, connection, and purpose. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.